I don't know about you, but I have so many people who are moving to Florida and they're on the phone with me all the time, or they come down here and they have so many questions, and everyone wants to know about the hurricanes. Do you get those questions too?
All the time.
What do they ask you?
All the time. It's usually a question in regards to how often do we get hit by hurricanes here? Are the homes rated to withstand a Category 5? All those kinds of things. The reality of it is that yes, they are rated to withstand a high wind rating. Yes, these homes are very well built. No, you probably never will run into a hurricane that bad ever here.
I love it though, the way some people will be like, oh, we haven't had a hurricane since Donna. Well, it didn't make direct landfall in Jacksonville, but we've all had hurricane force winds around here. And we live right by the nation's oldest city. Mm-hmm. St. Augustine is the nation's oldest city. If you didn't know that, it is 400 years old. And some of those buildings are still there. So if those buildings are still standing, I think KB Homes has probably figured this out.
Yes, building codes have progressed slightly since the 16th century. And all of these homes here in Panther Creek are rated to withstand 120 mile an hour winds sustained. That is absolutely fantastic. And I can tell you that in recorded history, there has never been sustained winds in this area at 120 miles an hour or higher. It has literally never happened. It's not to say that it won't.
Not that it can't, and the houses are ready for that, but the chances of that happening, Panther Creek is also further inland. So what really matters is if you see yourself in the cone of uncertainty, which is that weird ice cream shaped thing that it's on the weather maps, if you're there and it's on your coast, it's time to get ready. I don't know about you, but in our house, we're always ready to either batten down the hatches and stay, or to bug out and get ready to go. Like, I have family photos and a big Tupperware that I can throw in the car if we have to go. And it has been 15 years I've been in my house and we have never had to go.
I was just going to say, I've lived in North Florida off and on since the late 1970s.
Yeah.
Never had to actually leave.
Never.
Not once.
Yeah.
The way the coastline is shaped, the jet stream, the Gulf Stream, all the different things that affect weather and how it impacts our area. Jacksonville is a bit immune a little bit, to at least to direct hits from strong storms. It's a reason why there's a very different building code here versus South Florida. South Florida is a bit of a hurricane magnet. Tampa is a bit of a hurricane magnet. Jacksonville is like if you flip two magnets and put them close to each other and it just kind of doesn't want to line up. Hurricanes go to the north of us, they go to the south of us, they curve and run away. They're scared of us. And that's a wonderful thing. It's also the reason why your insurance premiums here are going to be much lower than the rest of the state, which is a great thing.
That is true. And the further inland you get, the lower the premiums as well.
Yes.
But even, okay, you see the news. I'm sure everyone, that's why they're asking the questions. They see the news and they see a 5-block area that got flooded in one little town. The rest of us just have a couple tree limbs down or something like that. It's not.
Yeah, and it's something to keep in mind when you see Jim Cantor show up. When you see these news reports of these neighborhoods that are flooded and houses that are destroyed, you got to keep in mind they're looking at the 1/100th of 1%.
Yes.
They're not looking at the 999 out of 1,000 people that maybe they lost a couple of small branches out of their tree, or their patio furniture blew over on its side, and that's all it is. Yeah. Unless you're right in one very tiny area, it's really just a thunderstorm. It's just a long thunderstorm for most people.
Even in those tight areas, like a couple years ago, Jacksonville didn't take a direct hit, but we had a hell of a storm surge, and there were some of those areas like San Marco, they flooded, and it was pretty bad. And it took, I want to say, about 6 to 8 months for them to rebuild, but it didn't look like a war zone or anything. When you drove past afterwards, you saw houses were airing out, they were taking out the drywall and putting it back in. But it wasn't like it was suddenly an unlivable space or you didn't even recognize it anymore.
Yes. What most people don't realize about hurricanes is that it's not the wind that gets you, it's the water.
Right.
And that's one of the wonderful things about the majority of this area, and especially where we are here in Panther Creek, is that you are not in a flood zone. As a matter of fact, you're way, way, way out of a flood zone. The average finished floor elevation, which is what a common term you'll hear in this industry, is basically that is how high above sea level is your floor, the floor of your house. The average finished floor elevation in this neighborhood is well over 20 feet above sea level. 20 feet above sea level here, you'd have to have a direct hit from a Category 5 to even think about that.
Right.
And that has literally never happened in recorded history in this area. So realistically speaking, you're going to be high and dry.
Even a direct hit from a Category 5 at the coast, it's going to be a 4 by the time it gets here. What most people don't know is a hurricane gets stronger over water and it starts to get weaker the second it hits land. So wherever it hits is the worst. After that, as it continues to travel, it's still not good, but it's not as bad.
Yes, and they get weaker very quickly.
Yes.
So what hits the coast is a 5. We're about 25 miles inland here. You're already a 4 or maybe even a 3 by the time it gets here, because hitting the land is like running out of gas for a car.
Yes.
The hurricane will coast to a stop, but it slows down very quickly. And out here, you don't have to worry about anything like that. You just don't.
Okay, so I am a bad Floridian. I am like Florida man about prepping for a hurricane. I'm one of those the day before. I have literally gone the day before and gotten my hurricane supplies. There's some people who go like the week before and they hit Costco, and it is a thing in Florida. We do eat our snacks before the storm gets here, and then we have to buy more snacks, and we all gain 3 pounds with every hurricane. So take that with your own advice. He is married to the most lovely woman. She's wonderful, and she is incredibly organized, and she does all the things that I don't do. So how does your wife, who's not like me, prepare for a storm?
Well, the first thing is making sure you have a fresh water source. So filling up your bathtub with fresh water before anything were to happen. That's number 1. Number 2, have a pantry full of Costco stuff at all times. My wife loves Costco. She lives by Costco, and we always have a lot of Costco stuff in the house. So there's always snacks, there's always goodies, things that you don't need to keep in a refrigerator. Because inevitably, if the storm is bad, you will lose power. You probably won't lose it very long, maybe a day or 2, but that's long enough to ruin things in the refrigerator. Better safe than sorry. And then, have that bug out bag or that go bag or whatever it is that you want to call it, just in case. Chances are you'll probably need it, but it's always better to have it and not need it than the other way around.
So he does it better at his house. We do a fairly decent job at my house. This last storm, I can tell you, our chickens didn't even notice there was a storm. So they were just still out there. I have a feeling your kids did notice.
I just love the fact that you have chickens. Like the closest thing we get to chickens is chicken McNuggets, probably where we are. But our kids, they actually love the hurricanes. They love to watch the trees sway back and forth. And they know that, if it was ever that bad, we'd get up and go. So if we're staying, it's really just going to be a really windy day, and they're little kids, so they think that's really cool.
You just don't get to play outside that day.
Exactly.
Oh, and what the kids love the most, they cancel school. So what Northerners think of as a snow day, we call it a hurricane day, and we all just stay inside.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's very similar mindset.
Exactly.
The
just
weather's
a
bad.
lot warmer.
So I hope that this keeps you all from being quite as nervous about hurricanes. I'm sure you have your own questions. Feel free to put them in the comments below. Derek and I will do our best to answer them. And if you have any other Florida questions, we can answer those too.